Hey, hello everyone. My name's Rebecca and welcome to my channel. Last weekend I did something that was really fun for me. I ended up getting a Python script able to connect to my YouTube channel to get a count of how many subscribers I currently had. And I also was able to figure out how to get Python to connect to a smart plug that was connected to a light. And so then I combined those two concepts, and if the count went up, it checked every 2 minutes to see if my subscriber count went up, then it would turn on the light. And it was fairly successful. I had it running for many hours last weekend, and there were times when the connection to the YouTube count would kind of come and go, but for the most part it worked really well. And so I want to show you how I did that, but before I get into that particular script, I thought it would be best to just show you the bare bone basics of Python, just to show you that anybody can do this. And so I'm going to start off with just some hopefully really quick tutorials, and I will have them named accordingly so you can watch whichever ones you're interested in. And then if you need some basics of Python, we'll start at the very beginning, some basics of the Python language, because I want to show you just that anybody again can do this, and it really is super simple. And I was really shocked at how simple those two tasks were, and it was a lot of fun to be able to take our programming language and add in other things in our environment, such as a smart plug. So to begin with, this particular video is just going to show you how to install, or where to go to install Python, and then where it will put it by default, and then how to use it for the very first time. So I already have the python.org website open, and so this is where you would go, python.org. And it is a programming language, but it's a fairly simple programming language for people to learn. And it's a great place to start, even if you don't consider yourself a programmer, or you may have never even thought about learning it. But I just would love to show you really how simple it is. So I am on a Windows-based computer, and so whenever I went to downloads, it actually recognized that I'm on a Windows PC. Or I think it did, at least. And so I just clicked on this and did the download. Of course, if you are on a different type of computer, Mac or Linux, then you would go to a different section to get the appropriate files. But the installation is super easy. I did the download, just took a few minutes. And then you'll just double click to start that download, and it's a very simple, straightforward install wizard, and I just took the defaults for everything. So once that gets installed, it's going to put a bunch of files on your computer, and I just picked the default location, which for me on my C drive, it will put them into your users folder by default. And so everybody that's ever logged into your computer will have a different folder, but of course I'm going in with my default login, and that's where it has installed it. And again, this was the default installation. And so let's see, to my users folder, and there is a folder that's always hidden, so if you don't see this, you'll have to type it in. But it's called app data. And then inside of app data, we go to local, and then to programs. Programs. And then this is where it has installed it on this PC. And so this is where it puts it. Not that you even need to be aware of this, but whenever you install Python, you do have what they call just the Python exe, just the main Python program. And then behind the scenes, it utilizes many of these other files. So just wanted to show you where it puts it. All right, and then you will also, whenever you first install it, have it on your menu. And of course it shows here because I've just recently have done it on this machine. And then of course later on it'll always show up down here by itself as well in its own folder. And whenever you install, you get a couple of things that will show up in here, but one of them is called IDLE, I-D-L-E, and we are going to just use it for simple programming. There are many different tools you can use to do actual Python programming, but this one's very simple, and it comes with the basic installation of Python. And nothing to be afraid of or worried about here. This is what we call an interactive mode, to where we have this what they call the prompt, these 3 greater than symbol prompt, and so it's waiting on us for an instruction. And so this is an interactive mode. So for instance, here they're telling us to, if you need help, you can type help, but if we type help just by itself and hit enter, it says, well, we need to type something inside a parentheses if you want specific help, or if you just type help with open close parentheses and hit enter, then it will kind of walk you through a little tutorial, which is really great. So it's got a little built-in tutorial. So I'm not going to go through that at this point, but let's see. I think if I quit. Okay, and so then I think to get out of help, we can just hit enter, just send a blank line, and then yes, and that got us back to the normal prompt. So like the very first thing that somebody will teach you how to do on a new programming language is a hello world statement. And so we're just going to do that with a print. And then this is Python 3x. There was a big change from Python 2 to Python 3. And so now with Python 3, we're going to put in parentheses what we want it to print. And also inside of quotes, because it's something that I want to type. And so just very simple, we'll just say hello world inside of parentheses, and then as we hit enter, it's just going to echo that back. And so that's pretty much your very first thing to learn in any programming language that you might start with. And so for Python, it's super easy. And so we did that here in this interactive mode. Now in this idle program, we can also go in and create a new file. And so I'm going to refer to these as script files, Python script files. And you can type in your program in here and save it, and then run it anytime you want. And so we will be using lots of scripts in the next few videos. So for instance, I can do the exact same thing here. I can say print hello world, and then save this with a file name. And there's nothing special about this file whatsoever. It's just that we're using the commands that Python knows, and we've got correct typing. Our syntax is correct with the parentheses and the quotes, and spacing is going to be very important in Python as you type things in and do indents. The indents will be very important. But this particular file could also have been created with any text editor, such as Notepad. And so it's just a straight text file, but we put the .py extension on this file. And so that's what makes it seen and visible to Python. So this is our first little script file. We'll go ahead and file to save as. And you can save it anywhere on your computer. I have created myself my own folder so that I can keep things mostly organized, and I just named it Python scripts. Again, you can put it anywhere you want. And I already had one named hello.py, so I'll name this hello2. And then again, it's going to put this .py extension on the file. And it's definitely just a text file. So if you were to use Notepad, you have to be careful. Don't let Notepad put .txt on the end of it. It has to end in .py. All right, and so we have just created that file. And a couple of ways we can run this. If we're using idle, we can actually just come up here to run and run this module, run this file. And it brings us back to the interactive mode, and that's where we see it. But I definitely want you to also be aware that you can do all of this from your command line as well. So if we go down here to the search, you can type in command or CMD, or I just typed in CM and it's bringing this up already for me. But we can go straight to your command prompt, and depending on how you installed Python, you can also do it from here. And it will probably work no matter what folder you're in whenever you first get in here. Like for instance, if I do it from this folder, it will work. But if I just type in Python and then hit enter, then you'll notice that prompt, it takes me back to the interactive mode. If I type in quit, that gets me back out of it. And then even if I were just right at the root C drive and I just typed in Python, it should still work. Yes, and see, that gets me into the interactive mode again. But the beauty of this is if you want to run your script file from the command line, you can. And all you have to do is say Python. And again, since ours will work from any folder, if it doesn't work from any folder, then all you have to do is get into the folder where Python is stored, that python.exe folder, and then it will work. Or you can put the whole path to where this Python exe is. But anyway, if you just did your default installation, this will work just fine. You tell it that I want to run Python, but instead of getting into the interactive mode, I want to go in and run my file. Now in my case, my file was in a folder called Python scripts, and I called that file hello2.py. There's no spaces here, so I don't have to put anything in quotes. If your folder name or your file name had a space, then you would have to put a double quote here in front of the C colon and at the end. So we're telling Python, go run all the code that's in this file. We hit enter. And then that's how we can get our file to run. All right, so whether you're going to use Notepad and command prompt, or if you want to use idle, either way, they're exactly they do the exact same thing. The one benefit of using idle, whenever you create these files, is you will have color coding. So in other words, whenever we type in certain commands, it will color code them for us. So it knew that print was a Python function, and so it put it in one color versus just raw text was in a different color. And so that's very, very helpful to get the color coding as you type in commands. But otherwise, we could have done this in Notepad, save it with the .py extension, and run it from command prompt. Or we can use idle, type it in here, get our color coding, and then run it from here. So you have a couple of options. So, all right, so that's going to be our first video, just how to install Python, which again, I didn't show you, but you just go to python.org, pick whatever operating system you have, pick what version of Python you want. By default, it will try to get you to install the most recent. And then again, you'll probably just want to take all the defaults for that installation program. And so we talked about installing it, and then also how to run your very first script file, or how to get into this interactive mode. which idle opens up into by default. All right, so stay tuned for the next video. Thanks so much.